Hey, everybody, welcome back to the All In Podcast. I'm one of the co hosts, Mike Badzik, joined like I am every episode by my co host, Eli Cooper. What's going on, man?
Not much, man. Not much. How are you?
Going good. Episode 40. So 4-0. We are just grooving now, man.
We're reaching like Tom Brady status
Right?
here.
Yeah.
How long we've been in the game.
I know. It's crazy, man. Like, we're like seasoned veterans now
Yeah.
of the podcast game. So episode 40. And we have a lot to talk about because we're kind of in sports euphoria right now with
Yeah.
everything going on. Basketball is in the playoffs, in the conference finals. Football now with week 2 just happening yesterday and today, the Monday night game. And also baseball, which, I always have a little bit of love for baseballs in their final week of their regular season, counting down to their playoffs. Also, we had the U.S. Open in golf this weekend. So it was a jam-packed weekend of sports. I was doing major channel flipping. I'm probably mostly was focused on the basketball and football, like a lot of people, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So we want to start with basketball and the Eastern Conference Finals. We saw Boston come back, and they're down 2-1 now. So we were wondering about the Heat taking a commanding 3-0 lead. They did not do that. Celtics had 4 guys score 20-plus points. Gordon Hayward made his return. Didn't really light up the box score or anything. He did play 30 minutes, but I think his just being there had an impact. So it's now 2-1. So, Coop, give us your thoughts on the series so far, and Celtics have a chance to come all the way back?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think they take game 4 on Wednesday when these two teams meet again.
Yeah.
I was actually encouraged by the reports after game 2 where guys were going at it. You know what I mean? Like that tells me, from the Celtics locker room at least.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Marcus Smart is, the main guy mixed up in that, but he's their most vocal leader.
Mm-hmm.
And he's kind of their Draymond in that sense. So, I think those things are healthy, especially for a team who, just got out of a battle with Toronto in a previous round. You can understand why they went down 2-0. And I think they needed a little bit of that, as far as that intensity and getting their energy back. And it showed. They came out and won game 3 pretty handedly.
Yeah.
In that case. And if you really look at the first 2 games and you go back through these, game 1, the Heat just, made the bigger plays down the stretch with Jimmy's big shot and then eventually Bam's block at the rim. Game 2, the Celtics were actually in control for most of that until about the third quarter when the Heat made their run and ended up coming back to win that game. So, those are both winnable games for the Celtics. So there should be frustration when you blow 2 games that you feel like you should have won. And it didn't carry over to the third game as far as the frustration goes. It seems like they figured it out and won that game pretty handedly. So I think the momentum has shifted in this series. And I take the Celtics in game 4, but I don't necessarily think that means they'll win the series. I mean, I had them in 7 at first. I'm going to stay with it just in case. But, the Heat just seemed like the more composed veteran team in this case, which they are. Even though the Celtics might have a little bit more playing experience, in these games, the Heat certainly have more veterans. They have Jay Crowder, Andre Iguodala, obviously their leader in Jimmy Butler. Dragic has been around the block. You know what I mean? So they have multiple veterans that they can lean on for that. These young players that they have, like Bam and Harrow and Duncan Robinson, can all lean on, for guidance. So, I think this is going to be as good of a series as we thought it would be. I'm glad the Celtics got a game back. I certainly didn't want this to be like a 4 close game sweep like it was looking like it was going to be. So, I think they'll even it up, and then it'll be, who wins 2 out of those last 3.
Yeah. Shaping up to be a really good series, which is what we expected coming into
Right.
it. I think, the fact that the Celtics had to go 7 with the Raptors took a lot out of them. We saw it in the first 2 games. Like, they were the more tired, fatigued team. And I think we kind of looked at game 3 and said, if they can get game 3, they're going to have a real shot. Because if they get game 3, then they're going to have a couple days off. They're not playing again until, I think, Tuesday. I think they're playing. No, Wednesday. They're not playing again until Wednesday, right? So they're going to have like 3 days off here to regroup, which is huge, I think, especially for the Celtics. The Gordon Hayward thing, I think, does probably matter a little bit. He didn't really do much in the box score, but he knows what he's doing out there.
Right.
He's better than Semi Ojeleye. He's taken away from Brad Wanamaker's minutes. Just that alone is such a big boost for the bench of the Celtics.
Yep.
Goran Dragic had his worst game of the series, maybe his worst game of the playoffs, really, and he's been great so far. Don't know if that's going to continue. But I'm looking at the Celtics, and we kind of talked about this before. We talked about, if Jayson Tatum can be the best player in the series, the Celtics are probably going to win the series. I'm not sure he was until this game. This game, he was the best player on the court. Mm-hmm. He had the best plus minus. I think he had like 25, 14, and 8. So he was filling it up, doing everything. And he's, besides Marcus Smart, might be the best defender on the Celtics. So I am really liking the Celtics right now. After game 3, I think game 4, I agree with you. I think they do get game 4. But I'm going to stick with the Heat. So we're opposite on this one, and I'm going to keep it that way. I'm not flipping-flopping in this series like I was doing with the Raptors. So I'll stick with the Heat. But this is going to be a great series.
Absolutely.
I think this is definitely going to be a better series than the Western Conference finals that we have seen so far.
Yeah.
Which is now 2-0. Sunday night, we saw Anthony Davis hit the game winner against the Nuggets. This was a good game. The last couple minutes were really good. So just give us your thoughts on the game and the winner, the game winner.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for the Nuggets after game 1 was getting back on defense. You would think the Nuggets, being the younger, more athletic team, I would think, at least on the wings, and even with their guards, would be the team that would be dominating in transition, but it was the Lakers. Mm-hmm. And, obviously they had a lot more rest coming into that first game. So that was kind of what contributed to the blowout in the first one, which I think most people would have expected after them coming back from 3-1. So game 2 was an opportunity for them to kind of, reset, address things that they messed up on. But the Lakers came out again, doing a great job of getting out in transition. Yeah. And as soon as the Nuggets kind of did as soon as they started doing better, getting back on defense and cutting off those transition baskets, they started to chip back into the game. It was looking like it was going to get away from them a little bit there through the first half and even through the third quarter. Mm-hmm. And they just kept chipping away. They kept chipping away. They stayed in it. Jamal Murray started to hit some shots. Jokic started to get going. Yep. Eventually it ended up being a battle down the stretch, between Jokic and AD, making these clutch plays down the stretch. But throughout that entire game, it was really just LeBron pacing the Lakers offense in the first half. They really had no answer for him. And then throughout the second half, AD finally stepped it up. And it's almost like he heard Charles Barkley in the TNT halftime thing and was just like, okay, you want to see the killer? Here's the killer. And I think there's a lot of talk, especially around AD after the Houston series, where people don't feel like he's that dog that he should be. Or as dominant as he should be, given that there's really no matchup for him in any of these series that they've played. None of these teams have someone who can guard Anthony Davis. And I think people have expected him to be more dominant. Well, second half, we saw how dominant Anthony Davis can actually be. And it wasn't just the game winner. Obviously, that's a huge shot. But, it was also, down the stretch, they went to him pretty much every possession down for him to say, go get us a bucket. And him and Jokic were going at it, back and forth until he hit that game winner. So that was good to see. And I think we need to see more of that from Anthony Davis. And if we do, this is going to be a sweep. So it's not looking good right now for the Nuggets. They just don't have anyone who can guard LeBron and Anthony Davis, or really either of them. Right. In that case. So if both of them can kind of get it together at the same time, it's going to be difficult for the Nuggets to recover.
Yeah, it is going to be difficult. And, when we talk about Anthony Davis, the Nuggets don't really have anybody for him. Not many people in the league have anybody for him. That's something we've been talking about. Right. Kind of is fun to watch this big man matchup here with Davis and Jokic. Down the stretch last night, you're right. Anthony Davis was the guy, and it was him and Jokic going back and forth. LeBron was just kind of, really LeBron couldn't get out of the way there for a couple minutes. I thought he was going to blow it for him, actually, coming down the stretch. Yeah. And he started to defer to Davis, and then on the, Davis is the guy taking the last shot, as he probably should have been. So let's do this, Coop, because, Coop had a busy week on Twitter. You did. You had a really I don't know if you guys follow Coop, but he had a very busy week on Twitter. He was first arguing with people about America and the politics of that, which is an entirely different podcast that we could probably do. And then he also was getting into the LeBron stands about why he shouldn't have won MVP. But Giannis was the MVP. We both agree. I don't really think that there's a strong case. Please tell us and tell everyone why this isn't really a debate.
Yeah, it's really not a debate. And LeBron was pretty upset that he only got 16 votes. I think you're lucky to have gotten 16 votes, if you ask me. And here's the reason why. It's not because on a year in, year out basis, LeBron isn't the most valuable player in the league. Like, that's obviously the case. We know that. But that doesn't mean he was the most valuable player of the 2019-2020 regular season. I don't know what it is about NBA Twitter, just in general, not even just LeBron fans, but like NBA Twitter in general does not seem to understand the concept that the MVP voting ends at the end of the regular season. And in this case, in this weird season that we had, it ended before they even got to the bubble. Yeah. Nothing in the bubble or that happened in the bubble was considered for MVP candidates. And really, neither Giannis or LeBron were good in those final regular season bubble games, so that didn't matter. Mm-hmm. LeBron has obviously been better in the playoffs, but again, none of that matters. And honestly, we knew Giannis was going to struggle in the playoffs. We saw it happen last year, so it wasn't a surprise. And it doesn't mean that he's not the MVP, though. The guy averaged 30 points, 14 rebounds, and 6 assists, all led his team. He was the defensive player of the year. Whether you agree with that or not, he was top 2. Anthony Davis is the only person in the discussion. So yeah. He was 100 times better than LeBron defensively throughout an entire season. Offensively, he put up those numbers that I just read off in 30 minutes. Crazy. To give context to that. That is 2.5 quarters of basketball is what that is. It's 2.5 quarters. He averaged 30, 14, and 6 in 2.5 quarters. His team was the best record in the league. Traditionally, and on most occasions, the MVP award goes to best player on the best team. And in this case, it not only went to best player on best team, it went to someone who had a Wilt-like player efficiency rating.
Right.
Like, it wasn't even close. If he had played LeBron's minutes, I think LeBron was averaging, 37, 38 minutes a game, something like that. There. So adjust his numbers to those minutes then. But they were blowing teams out in the regular season, so he didn't need to play 37 to 38 minutes. It was more ridiculous than what Curry did in 2016 as far as per minute statistics in that regards. And Curry won it unanimously in 2016, rightfully so. Mm-hmm. No one else even deserved a vote. But here's why LeBron specifically isn't the MVP. Here's other than just talking about how great Giannis was. Here's the other reason. LeBron led his team in one major stat category. One. And granted, he led them in plus minus. But now all of a sudden people care about plus minus. No one cared about plus minus when Steph Curry winning 2 MVP. No one cared about that. No one cared. And it's funny because, we're kind of going in this circle where the narrative on who should win MVP changes, right? Like, we're saying, okay, well, now LeBron, won the West. He had the best record in the West. So yeah, his numbers weren't as good, but he's in a tougher conference. Well, is he? Is he? Is the West actually tougher? And from 6 to 8 seed or 6 to 12, absolutely. Those teams are tougher.
Yeah.
If we look at the top 5 teams in the West, are they actually tougher? Clippers lost to the Nuggets. They didn't get out the second round. Would the Nuggets beat the Heat or the Celtics in a final series? I'm not 100% sure on that. I'm not 50%. I would say no. I would take the Celtics and the Heat in both of those series. Correct. I would take the Bucks against the Nuggets.
I'd take the Raptors.
I would take the Raptors.
Nice.
So are they really? Is the West really that tough? Don't get me wrong. Like, again, seed 6 on down, maybe
Right.
5 on down. No argument. But the top 4 seeds in the East, to me, were tougher than the top 4 teams in the West. From a balance standpoint, I think if the Bucks were in the West, they'd be in the Western Conference Finals right now.
Yeah, I think
maybe,
so too.
Unless they face the Clippers in the second round, maybe they don't get past the Clippers. But I think they would beat Denver.
Mm-hmm.
So it is what it is. And the other argument here is for LeBron has been, oh well, he's doing it in year 17. Doesn't matter. No one cares what season LeBron is playing in. I'm sorry. None of that.
Not for this, right?
Not for this award.
There's no handicap.
When it comes to his greatness, we're going to look back and say, dog, he dominated the league for 17, 18, 19 years, right? He was the best player in the league. And by the way, LeBron's still the best player on the planet. Like, that's not a debate or a discussion that we're having here. He's just not MVP of the 2020 regular season. 2019-2020 regular season. That's all that's being said here.
Yeah.
Because if we look at precedent in this case, as far as MVP awards, let's go back to last year. Best player and best team, Giannis, winner of the MVP. Before that, couldn't give it to best player and best team because the Warriors had both Steph and KD. They were obviously penalized for being on the same team. So then you give it to James Harden, who had the best statistics on one of the next best teams in the West. He had ridiculous numbers. Then we got Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook broke precedent. He won it strictly because he averaged a triple-double. We later found out that didn't mean shit.
Yep.
So, at the time, everybody thought it was incredible. We now know it means nothing.
Well, let me stop you right there then, actually, because then you talk about the guys who won because of the numbers. And right. I think normally we look at it and we say best player on best team makes the most sense. And this season, I think, Giannis, I don't really buy the LeBron argument. I think it's kind of, more of a fan thing.
Right.
But let me ask you this then. So we looked at Westbrook and he had the triple-double and then we said, well, this doesn't actually translate to winning in the playoffs. It doesn't really mean much. Next season, he averages a triple-double. He's not anywhere near the MVP.
Right.
Harden, won it with the crazy statistics. Really had the same statistics last year and really this year, and he wasn't the MVP, really wasn't considered the MVP. So I think we do look at it maybe the next year and say those stats don't mean as much because we see that they don't really necessarily translate into the playoffs. Let me ask you this, and I don't really have an answer for this. So, looking at Giannis, they lose in the second round this year, and I'm sorry I didn't prepare you for this question. Looking at Giannis, they lost in the second round this year. Going into next year, if Giannis, and maybe assume LeBron doesn't lose to the Nuggets here, assume he at least makes the finals. Right. If they have the exact same seasons next year, if Giannis averages the same numbers and LeBron averages the same numbers, and even if the Bucks are the 1 seed, does Giannis win it again, or do we look at it and say it didn't translate, therefore we're not going to give it to him?
If his record is better than the Lakers, he should win it. You set a precedent. Follow it. It's like I'm going to go there. It's like Republicans not allowing a Supreme Court justice in 2016 when Trump and Hillary ran. They would not allow the person Obama nominated to be elected or pushed into office until then. They're about to break precedent, which we all figured. But you know what I mean? It's if you set a precedent, stick by it, right? So now if the Lakers have the better record next year, I think you go to LeBron or AD. Depending on who's actually having the better season, if the Lakers have the better record, then it should be one of those two. But and when we go back, so the only 2 times where best player on best team didn't win it was James Harden and Russell Westbrook, who had superior numbers. LeBron doesn't have superior numbers.
No.
So where's the argument coming from when we look at the precedent that's been set for the MVP award? It's either best player on best team, or if you can't do best player on best team, it's someone who had incredible numbers. That LeBron's not in that discussion. If anything, that would still be James Harden.
And Giannis is both. He also has insane numbers.
And Giannis has insane numbers. That's why it's really not an argument. He's the best player on the best team with insane numbers. That's an obvious choice for MVP of a regular season. And now and again, the argument again was, LeBron in the tougher conference, had even though he had worse numbers, he led them to the 1 seed and after missing the playoffs, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, you also, these same people, and you're talking about that bring up plus minus and things like that, they don't hold or they don't give Curry that same respect. You know what I mean? Especially for his first one in 2015.
This is what it all comes back to. Curry doesn't get his respect.
No, listen, it's true. He had worse numbers than James Harden, but he was best player on best team. So now, and in the Western Conference, well, yeah. James is in the West, but he was the best player on the best team in the Western Conference. You didn't make that argument for him then. Don't make it for LeBron now. Be consistent. You know what I mean? It's either you have your best player on best team or you have the numbers. In this case, Giannis had both. Debate is over.
Yeah, and maybe me and you value – I hate to say this, but maybe me and you value winning more than other people where, if you're on the best team, that matters. If you're on playoff teams, that's why I didn't have Brad Beal on any of my All-NBA teams and was just so confused by Twitter losing their minds about Brad Beal, who had the third worst defensive numbers in the league this year, ahead of only Trae Young and Colin Sexton, and they wanted him on the All-NBA team. It's unbelievable. It's not going to happen. Trae Young, I didn't have him on my All-Star team. I know he got in as a starter because of the fan vote. I don't know if he would have got in if he didn't get the fan vote. Like, you have to be on a winning team to get recognition. And when it comes to MVP, which is the highest recognition, most of the time, besides special circumstance, like you mentioned, you should be on the best team and be the best player on that team. So, yeah, I think Giannis for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's wrap up our NBA talk then. Guys, we are going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and talk about NFL. So if you're on YouTube, it's going to be a different video. Make sure you go click on that video and check that out for our NFL talk. If you are listening on audio, just hang on a second. Listen to this quick message from our sponsors.